The tent wasn't there when we went to sleep. I know that for a fact, because before crawling into my sleeping bag that night, I remember standing beside the fire staring out at the clearing around us. There were only 3 tents, mine, Lucas's, and Ben's, that's it. No fourth tent, no other campers, nothing except trees and darkness stretching endlessly beyond the firelight. But when I woke up the next morning, there was another tent sitting beside our campfire, old, dirty, and completely silent. At first, I honestly thought I was still half asleep. The morning fog was thick across the clearing, and sunlight barely pushed through the trees overhead. Everything looked pale and washed out. I zipped open my tent slowly and just stared at it. The thing looked ancient, dark green canvas soaked with moisture, mud splattered along the sides. The material sagged slightly like it had been sitting in the rain for years, and somehow it looked wrong beside our gear, too old, too still, like it didn't belong there. Ben stepped out of his tent a few seconds later, rubbing his eyes, then immediately froze. "What the hell is that?" Lucas came out right after him. The second he saw the tent, his entire expression changed. "You guys messing with me?" Nobody answered, because the same realization hit all 3 of us at once. Nobody had heard anyone arrive during the night. Not footsteps, not voices, not even a zipper, and our tent sat less than 15 feet away from it. The forest around us felt unusually quiet that morning. No birds, no insects, just wind moving softly through the trees overhead. Ben laughed nervously. "Okay, maybe somebody got here late." Lucas shook his head immediately. "No," he pointed toward the ground. "They're DB footprints." We looked, nothing, no shoe prints, no drag marks, no signs anyone walked into camp at all. The dirt around the tent sat untouched except for old wet leaves. My stomach tightened instantly. Because it didn't make sense. Lucas slowly grabbed the metal flashlight near the fire pit. "Hello?" No response. He stepped closer carefully. The tent remained completely silent. Ben whispered quietly, "Maybe somebody's inside." That thought made my skin crawl immediately, because if someone was inside, that meant they'd spent the entire night only a few feet away from us, listening, watching us sleep. Lucas crouched slowly beside the tent entrance, then carefully grabbed the zipper. "You ready?" Neither of us answered. He opened the tent slowly. The zipper sound echoed loudly through the clearing. Then silence again. Lucas pulled the flap open completely and aimed the flashlight inside. Empty, at least that's what I thought at first. Then I saw the photographs, dozens of them scattered across the tent floor, old Polaroids, some faded, almost white with age. Lucas picked one up slowly. And immediately his face changed. "What?" He handed it to me without speaking. The photo showed a campsite deep in the woods, 3 tents beside a fire, a group of smiling campers. At first it looked normal, then I noticed the date written across the bottom, October 1998. Ben swallowed hard. "That's weird." Lucas grabbed another photo, then another. Every single one showed different campers, different years, different groups, always deep in the woods, always smiling beside campfires. And in every single photo there was an extra tent sitting nearby, the same old green tent. My chest started tightening. Ben stared into the darkness of the woods surrounding camp. "I don't like this." Neither did I. Lucas reached farther inside the tent. "Guys," his voice sounded different now, shaky. He slowly pulled out another photograph, and the second I saw it, my stomach dropped. It was us, our campsite, taken from the trees last night. The fire still burning low, our tents visible in the darkness, and through the thin fabric of my tent you could see my silhouette sleeping inside. Nobody spoke. I felt cold spread through my entire body instantly. Because somebody had stood outside our camp while we slept, close enough to photograph us. Ben whispered, "No." Lucas turned the photo over slowly. Written on the back were 4 words, "You should not have come." The wind moved softly through the clearing. Then somewhere deep in the woods behind us, a branch snapped. All 3 of us turned immediately. Nothing there, just endless trees, watching, silent. Then from somewhere far deeper in the forest, we heard another sound, a zipper slowly opening. The zipper sound came from somewhere deep in the woods behind us. Slow, deliberate, not loud enough to echo, but loud enough that all three of us heard it clearly. Ben immediately stepped backward away from the strange tent. Nope, we're leaving. For once, nobody argued. The atmosphere around the campsite had changed completely. It no longer felt like a place people were supposed to be. The trees surrounding us suddenly looked thicker somehow, closer, like the forest had quietly moved inward while we slept. Lucas kept staring at the photograph of us sleeping, his hands trembling slightly. Someone was here all night. Nobody answered because we already knew that. The horrifying part was realizing how close that person must have been, watching us breathe, watching us sleep, possibly standing beside our tents for hours without making a sound. Then the zipper sound came again, closer this time. My blood turned cold instantly, because now it sounded like it came from somewhere nearby, inside the clearing. Ben spun toward the old tent immediately. Did that come from in there? Lucas aimed the flashlight toward the opening. The tent sat still, dark, empty, at least from where we stood. Then suddenly something shifted softly inside, not movement exactly, more like fabric settling, but it was enough. Ben grabbed his backpack instantly. We're done. We packed faster than I've ever packed in my life. No breakfast. No talking, just panic and adrenaline. I kept glancing toward the woods every few seconds, feeling this horrible sensation that somebody stood just beyond the trees watching us. And every single time I looked, I had the feeling something had moved right before I turned my head. By the time we finally started hiking back toward the trail, the strange tent still sat beside the dead campfire exactly where it had appeared. Silent, waiting. The walk back felt wrong immediately. Too quiet, no birds, no wind, nothing except our footsteps. Then after maybe 20 minutes, Lucas suddenly stopped walking. What? He pointed toward the dirt path ahead. Footprints, barefoot footprints, human but impossibly long. The toes stretched unnaturally thin into the mud like fingers, and they crossed directly over the trail ahead of us. Ben stared at them in disbelief. What the hell made those? Lucas crouched carefully beside one, then his face changed. These are fresh. My stomach dropped, because there was only one direction the footprints came from, our campsite. Ben whispered, someone followed us. Then from somewhere behind us in the trees. We heard the zipper sound again, slowly opening. All three of us turned instantly, nothing there, only trees, but now the forest didn't feel empty anymore, it felt occupied. Lucas stood quickly, keep moving. We started walking faster, then faster, eventually almost jogging down the trail. Every few minutes we kept hearing things behind us, branches snapping, movement through leaves, and always that zipper, opening, closing, like someone setting up camp behind us every time we stopped listening. Around noon, we finally reached the old logging road where we'd parked the truck. And for the first time all day, I felt relief, until Ben suddenly stopped walking. Oh my God, the truck sat exactly where we left it, but all 4 tires had been slashed open. Deep cuts shredded the rubber completely. Lucas swore quietly under his breath. No. Ben turned in circles, staring at the forest around us. Somebody wants us stuck here. That sentence hit harder than anything else so far, because he was right. This wasn't random. Somebody had been planning this, watching us, keeping us inside those woods. Lucas pulled out his phone even though we all already knew there was no signal. Nothing, not even one bar. Ben kicked the truck hard. What do we do now? Nobody answered immediately, because the truth was obvious. We were miles from the nearest road, no service, no vehicle. And something in the forest clearly knew exactly where we were. Then Lucas froze, staring toward the truck bed. There's mud in there. We walked closer carefully, and my chest tightened instantly. Footprints, fresh, wet footprints inside the truck bed. Barefoot, long, distorted toes pressed into the mud. Whoever made them had climbed into the truck recently, watching, waiting. Then Ben noticed something else, a photograph sitting beneath the windshield wiper, the same old Polaroid style. Lucas grabbed it slowly, and the second he flipped it over, his face went pale. The photo showed the 3 of us standing beside the truck, taken from the trees only minutes earlier. We looked terrified, small, exposed, and in the background behind us, something tall stood partially hidden between the trees watching. Ben whispered, "We need to get out of here now." Then suddenly, from deep in the forest around the logging road, we heard laughter. Soft, quiet, almost playful. And immediately after that, dozens of zippers slowly opening at the same time. The sound of all those zippers opening at once, I still hear it sometimes when I'm trying to sleep. Not loud, not aggressive, just slow, patient, like dozens of people quietly stepping out of tents somewhere deep in the woods around us. Ben back toward the truck immediately. No, 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 no. Lucas grabbed the tire iron from the truck bed and turned slowly toward the trees. Stay close. The laughter came again, closer now. Different voices this time, men, women, even children, soft laughing drifting through the forest like people sitting around invisible campfires. And somewhere underneath all of it I could hear movement, footsteps, bare feet against wet dirt circling us, watching us panic. Ben whispered, "They're herding us." The moment he said it, I realized he was right. Every sound in the woods pushed us toward the same direction, back toward the forest trail, away from the road, away from escape. Lucas looked down the logging road both directions desperately. Nothing, no cars. No people, no signal, just miles of forest. Then from somewhere behind us, we heard the sound of tent fabric moving slowly in the wind. I turned and nearly screamed. The old green tent now stood beside the trees across the road, 30 feet away. None of us had moved it, none of us even saw it happen, but there it was, silent, waiting. Ben stared at it in disbelief. "That's impossible." Lucas tightened his grip on the tire iron. "We're leaving right now." He started walking down the road quickly. Ben and I followed immediately. Nobody looked back at first. Then maybe 5 minutes later I noticed something. The woods had gone completely silent again. No laughter, no footsteps, nothing. And somehow that silence felt worse. I turned slowly toward the trees beside the road and saw the green tent moving between them, keeping pace with us, half hidden behind branches, always the same distance away. My chest tightened instantly. "Guys," Lucas looked over, then stopped dead because now he saw it too. The tent stood among the trees perfectly upright despite no visible person carrying it, like it was gliding through the forest on its own. Ben whispered, "No," then the tent flap slowly unzipped by itself. Darkness waited inside, complete darkness. And from somewhere within the tent, someone whispered softly, "Help me." Lucas froze because the voice sounded exactly like his younger sister, his dead younger sister. I saw the color drain from his face instantly. Ben grabbed his shoulder hard. "Don't listen to it." The voice came again, crying now, "Lucas, please." Lucas took one slow step toward the woods. I grabbed him immediately. "That's not her." But his expression looked broken because whoever or whatever was inside that tent knew things it shouldn't know. The voice inside the tent started sobbing quietly, exactly like a real person, exactly like grief. Then suddenly the crying stopped, and something inside the darkness smiled. You could hear it. A horrible wet grin hidden inside the tent. Then all at once the forest exploded with movement. Figures sprinted between the trees around us. Tall, thin, fast, not fully visible. Just flashes of pale skin between branches. The laughter returned immediately, closer, surrounding us now. Ben shouted, "Run!" We bolted down the logging road, branches snapping behind us, bare footsteps pounding through mud beside us in the woods. And every few seconds that tent appeared again between the trees. Always ahead of us somehow. Waiting, watching, the road eventually curved sharply around a hill, and that's when we found the ranger station. At first it looked abandoned, tiny wooden cabin beside the road, broken windows, roof collapsing inward. But the second we saw it, we ran toward it anyway. Lucas kicked the door open hard. Dust exploded into the air. The inside smelled rotten. Old papers scattered everywhere, mold covering the walls. But near the back desk, someone had written words directly onto the wood with a knife. "Do not sleep here." Ben whispered, "Oh God." Lucas searched desperately through old drawers looking for anything useful. Maps, radios, anything. Then he found the journal, small black notebook covered in dirt. The first few pages belonged to a forest ranger from 1989. Most entries talked about missing hikers, strange campsites appearing overnight, people hearing voices outside tents. Then the final entry changed completely. The handwriting became shaky, uneven, panicked. It read, "They move camp while you sleep. If the tent appears beside yours, leave immediately. Do not open it. Do not respond when it speaks. And if you wake up and someone is missing." The sentence stopped there, like the writer never finished it. Then from outside the ranger station, we heard a zipper slowly opening. All three of us froze instantly. The sound came from directly outside the door. Then softly someone knocked 3 times. Ben backed away immediately, shaking. Lucas whispered, "Don't answer it." Another knock. Then a voice spoke quietly from outside, my voice perfectly copied. "Guys, let me in." Every hair on my body stood up instantly because I was standing inside the cabin, which meant whatever waited outside wasn't me. Then the thing using my voice laughed softly, and suddenly dozens of tents appeared silently between the trees surrounding the ranger station. Old tents, new tents, hundreds of them, different colors, different sizes, all facing the cabin. And one by one, their zippers slowly began opening together. Lucas started crying quietly. Ben looked completely frozen in terror. And somewhere beyond the tents, deep in the darkness, something enormous moved slowly through the woods toward us, heavy footsteps shaking the ground beneath the cabin floor. The copied version of my voice whispered softly through the door, "You weren't supposed to wake up." The last thing I remember clearly is the sound of canvas moving outside the cabin, hundreds of tents breathing in the dark. Ben disappeared sometime before sunrise. We never heard him scream, never heard him leave. He was simply gone. Lucas and I somehow reached the highway later that morning. Neither of us remembers how. Police searched the forest for weeks. They found the ranger station eventually, but according to them, there were no tents, no footprints, no signs anyone else had ever been there. Lucas refuses to speak about what happened now. Sometimes he wakes up screaming in the middle of the night, claiming he hears zippers outside his apartment. As for me, I haven't slept in a tent since that night, and every once in a while, usually around 3 a.m., I wake up with the horrible feeling that someone is standing just outside my bedroom, waiting, listening, like they're checking to see if I'm finally asleep again. If you are new here, subscribe to Tales of the Dark, where every story gives you a nightmare.